From the grind to the glory, one man's journey proves that heart, hustle, and determination change the game. This is Catch as Catch Can with George Tinsley Sr., where adversity is met head-on and champions are made. Here's George.
Welcome to Catch as Catch Can. I'm George Tinsley Sr., former professional athlete, entrepreneur, author, and your host. This is a space where we sit down with leaders who face real challenges, learned real lessons, and kept moving forward.
Turning obstacles into opportunity.
Welcome to Catch as Catch Can. Today we have Jonathan Osborne with us. Jonathan K. Osborne is a business litigation shareholder, managing shareholder of Gunster's Fort Lauderdale office, and chair of the firm's white-collar defense practice group, a former Assistant U.S. attorney, Georgetown law graduate, and a collegiate basketball player at UNLV and Alaska-Fairbanks College. Jonathan is a seasoned first-chair trial lawyer and host of the Always an Athlete podcast. Jonathan, welcome to our program today.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here and to spend some time with you on your show.
Well, it's our pleasure, young man. It's always good to see that there's a little basketball intertwined in the background there. And so this is our Catch as Catch Can podcast, where we talk in terms of turning your obstacles into opportunities and how your career has advanced from the early beginnings to where it is today, and how you've been able to turn the different obstacles that you've experienced into positive success stories. So once again, glad to have you on the program, and glad to know you're Floridian, right down the street from us here. So that works well. Let's start off by just telling us a little bit about your background and how you got started.
Happy to. First, I want to again thank you and your team for having me, providing this opportunity to have this conversation. The idea of turning obstacles into opportunities is something that I think about and love talking about, especially with young lawyers who are on this path, hopefully towards successful careers. And so I really appreciate this forum. And in terms of my background, I'm from Miami Gardens, Florida. I come from a great family that always stressed the importance of education, sports, if you'd taken care of your educational obligations before practice or before games, and have been fortunate to live in some great cities. I grew up in Miami. We moved to Las Vegas, Nevada when I was in high school. Over the course of my educational journey, I went from UNLV to Alaska, which is in Fairbanks is where my university was located, and finished my education in Washington at Georgetown. Started my legal career here in South Florida. And even that career has taken me from private practice to serving as a federal prosecutor and back to private practice about 6 years ago. And at every step along that way, there were incredible opportunities as well as obstacles, some that I faced alone, or I felt like I faced them alone, but most that I faced with the support and help of family, friends, mentors.
Great background. You know, and in our podcast, we deal with a lot of athletes who have taken their athletic skills when their career has come to an end and transferred them into the business sector. And
Sure.
As you look back on your career in participating in athletics and coming from Miami Gardens, which is a pretty unique area, and traveling along, what experiences did you encounter that helped carry you into the next phase of your life?
It's a great question. I think I'll start by talking about relationships that helped guide me from phase to phase. In sports, the team approach to winning and dealing with the adversity when you lose, sometimes when you lose and you feel like it wasn't fair, are really the ingredients of what it takes to be a successful trial attorney, because we do the same thing in law. We practice as a team, we win as a team, we lose as a team. Sometimes when we lose, we feel like it wasn't fair.
Yeah.
But really, fundamentally, it's that team concept of setting a goal at the very beginning. So having a vision for every case, just like Mr. Tinsley, you had, along with your team, a vision for every season. And you set out with those goals in mind. You practice as hard as you can. You work as hard as you can. You wake up early. You stay up late to try to accomplish that goal. And along the way, you face challenges. And really the test of excellence to me, beyond winning, is winning or losing with grace. And with respect to other life lessons from sports, the importance of relationships with team, with the community, and with anyone who supports you. And that same attitude, I think that really fundamentally underneath that is humility, has allowed me to have whatever success I've enjoyed after my collegiate career ended at this point many years ago.
So when you and we kind of go back to your career, when you first started playing basketball or playing sports, were you still in Miami, or had you moved to Las Vegas at the time?
So in high school, I played a number of sports, basketball, football, volleyball. I even ran track a couple seasons. When we moved to Las Vegas, I went from a small school in Miami to a very large school in Las Vegas, where we, generally speaking, focused on just one sport. And that's really when I focused on basketball. So I'd started playing sports previously. And Mr. Tinsley, I really, as a very young child, never had specific aspirations to be a collegiate athlete. I wanted to be a good athlete. I wanted to compete at the highest level that I could. And I was just very fortunate as I got through my junior and senior year to get some interest from a few colleges and the opportunity to play at UNLV, which at the time was my home school, my local university. But it was a program that I'd watched as a kid, even in Miami, in the glory days of UNLV in the early 90s. So there's some irony in that. We have pictures of me in Miami Gardens in our front yard or at my grandma's house with UNLV gear on, far before anyone could have anticipated that we would have moved to Nevada, 15, 20 years later.
Interesting. Yeah, that's very, very interesting. So did you play at UNLV for any period of time?
Sparingly. as we talk about obstacles.
Who was the coach then?
So my coach was Charlie Spoonhour.
Okay.
And he since passed, rest his soul. He was a great man. And I was there for my freshman year and my sophomore year. And for a lot of reasons, I think a lot of my teammates were far more developed than me physically. They were a lot stronger than I was at that age. And even then, there were times where I felt like I could have contributed had I gotten in the game, and I didn't. But guess what? That's life.
Yeah.
So there were obstacles there at 18, 19, 20 years old when it came to sports that I think in a couple ways helped me learn how to deal with adversity, taught me that sometimes I have to work harder than maybe the next person. Also, that I'm not always going to be the best at everything. And how can you still contribute, though, to the team, even when you're not the star, even when you're not playing, even though you think you should be or your parents think you should be? And how do you continue to achieve goals and not give up, even when the circumstances aren't as you would create them if it was up to you? Because it's oftentimes not up to you.
All right. So as you participated with that team, you didn't get to play as much as you would like to play, but you were around the group of guys and felt a part of the team. You developed a skill set of being able to learn from those experiences. When was it when you started thinking, thinking in terms of your next step, your career next step?
I started seriously thinking about it by probably my senior year of school. So after my sophomore year, I stopped playing basketball. I thought I'd retired. And I went back to play for my senior year, which is when I transferred to Alaska.
Okay.
So while in Alaska, I was actually nearing the end of college in terms of my eligibility coming to an end. I was finishing up the credits to graduate. And at that point, really the decision was, do I want to try to continue a career overseas playing basketball, or do I want to go back to school and basically start my professional career? I chose to continue school. So after Alaska, I moved back to Vegas. I did a master's degree really as a bridge from undergraduate to law school. And even then, though, there were a lot of lessons about what it was going to take to get into law school or to get into the kind of law school that I wanted to go to. And that was a really, it was a fun time, but I worked really hard during that time to try to do well on the LSAT. I had 3 jobs. I would work essentially 7 days a week while at the same time getting my master's degree. And it's kind of funny in hindsight to think about those days. I think I work a lot harder now in terms of the hours in the day, and I have far more things on my plate than I did when I was 21 or 22 years old. But I was so passionate and inspired to get into a good law school and to be successful in law school that I put myself under a lot of stress to succeed. And even in that, there will be somebody who gets into a higher ranked law school or gets better grades once they get to the law school where we attend. But all those lessons are what I think help set me apart in what I get to do now day to day professionally.
Mm-hmm. So when you're in college, when you're excuse me, finishing up your last year as a basketball player, and you decided you wanted to go into law, was there a certain specific area in law that you wanted to participate in or concentrate in? Was it something about law that really enthused you?
Yes, sir. So starting when I was a kid, what my parents say is that I would talk about wanting to be either an attorney or a preacher.
Okay.
And I think what drew me to those two things was the idea that in both of those professions, if you do them right, you have an opportunity to be a voice for people who don't have a voice, an advocate. So that's really what, in my mind, made me, as you look out on the world of potential careers. So that's why I would say maybe attorney versus doctor or engineer or teacher. So that's where that started. And I didn't really know many attorneys growing up, and certainly didn't have any that I considered to be an active mentor in my life. But between college and when law school started, I had the opportunity to be a file clerk at the United States Attorney's Office in Nevada. It's right there on Las Vegas Boulevard if you keep going past the Strip. And Mr. Tinsley, that job basically was an assistant to the file clerks. So I would stack paper, make copies, take out the trash, whatever they asked me to do.
Right.
But on occasion, I would fill in for our receptionist, which meant that I would greet people as they came and went. So I met federal prosecutors, I met federal agents, I met federal defense attorneys and judges. And through that role, I found a professional calling to not only be a lawyer, but a trial lawyer. And for a time, a federal prosecutor who represented the United States of America, which professionally was an amazing experience, but really a dream come true. And I found that dream through having a job as an assistant file clerk two days a week after class. And it's made a huge difference in my life. And I found mentors there who told me about the specific prospects of a legal career as a trial lawyer. And I haven't looked back.
Very, very interesting. Was it something about that work experience, because you're working extra hard?
Yes.
Was there something about that experience and relationship with these judges and different, well, you said assistant file clerk, but the different
that was
people.
My job.
Yeah. That really kind of interested you? Did you read some of the cases? What was it about it that really just kind of?
It was the impact that everyone in the courtroom could have on a community. And I think at that time, I kind of dreamed of being a federal prosecutor. I didn't know if I would ever accomplish that goal, but I saw unfolding in front of me how our system works at the highest level. You have the district court or magistrate court judges. You have the attorneys who are there to represent the United States or the victim. You have the person who's there to protect the interests and the rights of the defendant. And you have so many other people that are involved as well. You have the probation office. You have the U.S. Marshal Service. You have just this collection of professionals who are all called to the same mission, but approaching it from different angles. And watching that unfold day to day said to me, I want to be a part of this. I want to do this one day. And I was just very fortunate to be able to do it.
So you go to Georgetown Law School.
Yes, sir.
And you're, while going through your law school program there, were you doing any intern work, or what was going on here now, this stage of your life?
Thank you. I'd say the theme remained that I pretty much worked all the time. So my first year of law school, I had a job part-time at a global PR firm in their legal department. I would go to class at night. And then that summer I worked in-house at AT&T on Capitol Hill, which was a very enlightening and interesting experience in their legal department. My second summer I worked in this office where I am today at Gunster in Fort Lauderdale.
Okay.
And learned about the corporate practice of law and what business litigation looked like. And my third year, I actually had, during the school year, my first actual case with a real client where there were real stakes. Our client was a gentleman who'd been denied Social Security benefits, and he had appealed the denial of the benefits up through the court system. And I represented him on appeal before the United States Court of Appeals for the DC Circuit, and had my first oral argument in court. And we were fortunate to win that case. But that experience confirmed what I believed before law school, which was that I was meant to be in a courtroom.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow, that's interesting. So tell us a little bit about a Gunster law firm.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So we are a Florida firm founded 100 years ago in Palm Beach.
Mm-hmm.
We are now across the state. We handle litigation matters throughout the country, but really the principles behind the law firm have always been a focus on service to the community, service to your clients, and service to the team within the law firm. In the last few years, we've continued evolving and have recently put into words what I think the firm has always been, which is a place where leaders thrive. And our goal is for our clients to thrive, to be involved in the community, serving day to day. And also, and this is one of my personal goals, is to raise leaders to come behind you. And so whatever success I've had, it will be measured by the success of the people that I teach. And that's a principle that I think is very important in law, as it is in every profession. But in law, so much of what we do is practice. Every day is practice, and you have ups and downs, and learning, like we did as athletes, to respond to challenges, to respond when you get knocked down, really is vital to not just being a good attorney, but to being ethical, which is a tremendous aspect of the calling that we all have, because our clients are counting on us.
And I'm looking over at our chat, our audience, live audience, and one of the questions that one of our people have, I want to pose to you, says, okay, what do you think would have happened if you hadn't won your first case?
That's a good question.
Yeah, it is.
So that particular case, I don't think we were expected to win. Our client was an individual gentleman from DC who was up against the federal government. So to answer your question, I don't think anything would have actually happened had we not won the case, but we were very grateful to win the case. What I would say is that since then, I've lost cases where either it was even going in, but when I was a prosecutor, where you're a lot of times expected to win and you can sometimes still lose. And so what happens there is you are sometimes embarrassed for a time, but even then you have to learn from what you did wrong or learn what you could do better next time, even when the outcome was outside of your control. And so I would like to say that in private practice and as a prosecutor, I think we win most of the time, but the loss in private practice is really not my loss, it's the client's loss. And so that comes with a lot of gravity, because our clients have a lot on the line when they are in the court system, and it's a foreign world to them, even though for me, it's what I do every day.
Sure.
And so losing it's high stakes. Sometimes losing, it means a person loses the business that they built. Sometimes it means that they suffer a hit to their reputation that they will not recover from. And losing in sports, though, I think teaches you that you have to prepare like every game is your biggest game. And when you lose a point, or I've been watching the World Cup recently, you lose, you can even tie and lose in football. And I think you learn, if you get the chance to get on the field again, or if I get a chance to go back to court, to try to be better than I was the previous time, and to not take yourself so seriously, even though you take your job very, very, very seriously.
Thank you for that answer. What inspired you to launch Always an Athlete?
Conversations like this one.
Okay. Okay.
Yes, conversations like this one. What I found over the last few years is that I'd be at lunch or dinner with friends who are former athletes at whatever level. Some played in the NBA, some played in college, some played Pop Warner. And people talk about sports, like what team won or what team lost over the weekend. But I think those of us who were athletes and who learned from being athletes will come back to these common themes that we learned in sports that carry us through life.
Right.
And so, Mr. Tinsley, when I started my show, I hadn't seen your show yet. But when I saw your show, I said, I want to be like him. And it has been very eye-opening because through the interviews, I've interviewed some people that I never met before, but I've also interviewed people that I've known a long time, but who I never connected with on that wavelength.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And on both sides of that spectrum, the conversations have been very interesting. What caused you to start yours?
Which caused me to start
your podcast.
Oh, okay. To really spread the word and to show that no matter where you come from, no matter what you experience, that you still can make the best of it to be a success. One of the questions I just noticed over here was about when you lose. I'm sorry. You either win or you lose, or you learn, and no losses. And through sports, through going through tough times, that you learn from it. And even though it's a setback, it's also offers an opportunity to come back, and go back at it again with the learnings that you've experienced. So that has always been kind of my theme of coming out of tough situations and being able to see the good, the win, and take that part and advance it to the next level, versus sitting back and crying tears and so forth. So that's why I'm really inspired to hear you speak in terms of what you're doing and how you've been able to advance your career and your philosophy to the next step.
Thank you.
Outstanding. Let's see, what do we? How do sports and business leaders intersect in the conversation that you host during your pods?
So in a couple ways, I always want to talk to the guest about what led them to persevere through sports.
Mm-hmm.
And then that naturally has led, at least for my guests who are no longer athletes. I've had guests who are still athletes. But for those who are no longer athletes, whether that is a coach or someone who's in law or business, then the question becomes, what has compelled your passion and your drive since your formal athletic career ended? What are you still doing to remain an athlete and to stay active and stay competitive outside of work? And a question I always have is, what lessons do you have for the next generation? And oftentimes, what are you doing to actually teach those lessons? We are all, I think when we are playing at the highest level, you're always a coach to someone and always being coached by someone. And that's a lesson that I've learned in sports, because even my coaches, Charlie Spoonhour, for example, I was coached briefly by Lon Kruger. All of these great coaches that I've known over the years all had a coach, not necessarily older than them, but a colleague who they look to for guidance and for support and for input as to what you can do better. That's a sports principle, but it's really a human principle that applies across the spectrum of business. And so that really is something that I think, but our conversation on my show is about how that manifests in different arenas, whether the guest is a judge, an economist, works in sales, or is currently working in the business of sports.
Yeah, I think, Jonathan, once you participate in sports, team sports in particular, track is a little bit different because it's an individual thing, but team sports that whether you're a star or whether you're the last man on the bench, you understand team, Yeah, and when you're competing, you understand winning, you understand losing, and how to lose, and how to learn from losing. And that kind of, once it's in your fiber, it just kind of goes with you no matter what you do. You learn how to break things down. Excuse me, break things down rather than reacting quick. You analyze it, and and understand how to, the coaching aspect of it, comes out, and how do you get through the next step. So it was really interesting to hear your comments there. It's once you're in it, and
Right.
it becomes part of your fiber. So let's take a look at your social media website here.
Okay.
So our audience can see how to connect with you.
Sure.
This is a live show, and for them to be able to see some of your what's going on. Holding Court with Jonathan Osborne. Walk us through this, John.
Yeah. What'd you say, sir?
I said, walk us through this.
Sure. Yeah. Sure. So this page is one that I created. It showcases some insights that I've had as to current events in the law. That's under Legal Insights. Media reflects some episodes from my own podcast, but also the times like today where I've been fortunate to be featured on other people's shows. The About Me section will have in it my bio, both my long bio that talks about my upbringing, as well as a link to my law firm website, where a person, if interested ever, could contact me about potential representation. And this all kind of came to fruition at the same time. When I was a prosecutor, I was basically invisible. Right. I didn't want to have a public profile. I didn't have any social media. I think I was on LinkedIn, but I was not on Instagram or anything else. And gradually, as I've been inspired to start my podcast and to try to have a voice into this conversation about excellence in law, excellence in business, excellence as former athletes, it led to starting the website, starting the podcast, and trying to learn how to do a show, which also was a great learning experience that has had its own obstacles.
Yeah.
And this is our page for the Always an Athlete podcast. It's on YouTube as well as Spotify.
Good. Okay.
And that's me catching the basketball.
That's just quite impressive there,
sir.
And to get some insight. So, what would you say today to some of our athletes out there that are going through high school, going through college, and even their parents that are looking at their futures? They may want to be a star or want to go on to professional ball, but that just doesn't happen. And having a fallback position and something that you really are enthusiastic about, something you're committed about. What would you say to those that are coming along behind you?
I'm excited to talk about that. I'd say I'll start with the parents, and I'm now a parent. I have three small kids. Our oldest is 5, our youngest is 2. So as a fellow parent, what I'd say is to do what you can to get your children into sports and activities that they love. But I think equally important is to introduce them to friends, people in the community, people at work who have a perspective that can complement your own as a parent. As I think back on my life, both as a child growing up in Miami Gardens as well as in Las Vegas, and then later in college, and once you start your career, you start to develop your own relationships. But as amazing as my parents have been and still are, I've also been very fortunate to have mentors who are not related to me, who had no real specific reason to help me, but who lended a helping hand, wrote me a letter of recommendation, or supported me at a minimum as I was pursuing my dreams. So that's what I would say to parents. What I'd say to the young athlete is, it's going to end. It ends for all of us. For me, it ended at around age 21 in terms of my formal athletic career. But for all of us, there will be life after sports. And you can't always see the horizon or see specifically what the future will hold for you. But there will be a future, and the time to prepare for it is today. So your number one priority is your sport. It should be your schooling and your sport. But out there one day, there will be something that your sport and your schooling is preparing you for. And in my experience, when you get there, that can be just as exciting as playing ball.
Right. Mm-hmm. So do you, in your community that you live in, do you get involved in any other extracurricular activities now? Because it sounds like you're really, really busy.
Busy.
So I don't know if you had, that was kind of time, but are you able to give back in any other way other than what you're doing with your podcast?
Absolutely. And so what I've done in recent years is here at the firm, we started a program called the Leadership Training Academy, which is a probably twice a year mentorship opportunity for law students across the state of Florida. Started out virtually. We've had 1 or 2 sessions in person as well over the years. And really the goal there is for myself and the group of people that we founded it with to bring to bear the relationships that we have and to make them accessible to law students while they're still in law school. One of the larger commitments of time that I've made over the last year is actually to serve as the president of the federal bar chapter here in Broward County. My service on that is about 1 year. It ends in September. But through that, we've convened essentially monthly meetings with our federal judiciary. And the goal there is to support the courts while also providing an opportunity for attorneys in our community to get together to do good work for the community and for the judicial system. Other things, I've served on the board of the Children's Bereavement Center, which provides free grief support to families and people of all ages after they've suffered a loss. And so I'd rolled off that board after serving for a number of years, but I've just recently rejoined. And so that's been very fulfilling board service. And that organization started in Miami, but is now providing grief support to people anywhere and does a lot of programming virtually so that people who have lost a loved one anywhere in the United States can get help. So those are some of the things that come to mind. I was playing Mr. Tinsley in a men's league a few years ago, and I ruptured my patellar tendon.
Oh boy!
And I saw in your intro video you have some videos working out and things like that. And so after that injury, I had to go through full rehab. It's about 18-month recovery time. And so since then, I do not play competitive basketball, but I do have a basketball trainer named Dave Gartrell who keeps me in shape. So somebody watching me through the glass would say, what's this old guy doing out here? He looks like he's trying to make a high school team. I'm not trying to make a team, but I am trying to continue competing at the highest level that I can. And having my coach that I've been now with for 4 years has really just totally revolutionized my perspective on remaining an athlete as I get older and as the things on my plate expand. And so that would include my profession, my family, and trying to be not only a leader within the context of my cases, but also in this community that I've been blessed to live in for so many years.
Yeah, that is very interesting, Jonathan, that you mentioned that. Excuse me. We down in Coral Springs, we have a senior basketball competition every year down there where teams come in at all different age groups to play during the Mother's Day weekend. It usually falls around that time. And we have guys that are playing up into their 80s.
Wow.
It's a 3-on-3. And I think the 5-on-5s kind of stopped around 60, 65. But I played myself right up until 70. When I was 70, we won the world championship at Disney, 5-man full court. So at 75, I fell 3 times because my hips were deteriorating and I didn't have any lateral movement. So that's when I hung them up at that particular time. So given that age group, I'd say if you still want to get out there, there's room to not be as totally competitive, but to at least have that exercise. Yeah,
I'd love to. And sir, you embody always an athlete.
Exactly. So that's very interesting. Let's see what we have over here. Questions. The ball stops bouncing for everyone at some point. Got to have a plan for the next chapter. It's one of our folks there, and basically that's what you're alluding to. Then that next chapter of what you're doing in your life. Excuse me. In South Florida, given the political climate and everything, do you find in your practice that you have to deal with very many political scenarios that enter into what you're doing?
I don't, in the sense of national politics.
Okay.
I think that in our community, and I think this would probably be true of other communities throughout Florida, a lot does hinge on relationships, and I think also credibility and the trust that decision makers have in your word. And so that involves some degree of political capital, political relationships. Sometimes we're engaged in cases where there is a governmental authority or a politician who is involved in the matter. But my personal practice wouldn't involve party politics. It'd be more having a representation where I may be the advocate for a person who is a public official. I may represent a party who is adverse to a public official or to a government agency. And we're trying to navigate in that instance, first of all, the facts and the law as it relates to the dispute, but also public perception, media, and narratives, which are political, but not in the election type involvement sense. And one other thought I had when asked about how the ball continues to bounce if you're fortunate enough to stay in the game of life long enough, is one lesson that I learned actually as a prosecutor, where most of the people that we prosecute, at least in the beginning of my career, looked a lot like me, actually. Around my age, maybe a little younger, but oftentimes from the same neighborhood that I grew up in. And being a prosecutor, which was a tremendous honor of my career, also shed light on the importance of mentorship and on serving the community, because a lot of people that end up defendants didn't have to end up that way. And even once a person goes to jail, the ball doesn't have to stop bouncing for them at that point either, because there's going to be a future even for someone who's been through the criminal justice system. And so I've been fortunate that in all the aspects of my life, going back to when I was a child, even through today, the lesson of your podcast rings true every single day. And if a person is willing to pay attention, I think that they'd agree it's like that for them too.
Yeah. Right. Looking back at one of our questions here that someone that just jumped on says, "Sorry, I'm late. Not sure if this was answered already, but if you didn't go the law route, what career do you think that you would be in right now?"
Thank you. And that's questions from Nia. Hi, Nia. Thanks for being here.
Yes.
If I didn't go the law route, I think I would have been, at least for a time, maybe a professor. I studied communication before law school, and at the time that I went to law school, I was thinking about whether to do a PhD. Having now been an attorney for about 14 years, I don't know that I would have stayed a professor, because I don't think it would have been, and I could be wrong about this, but I think the competitiveness and the challenges that every day brings in my current career is something that I thrive on. So let's say I'd started out as a professor, maybe I would still be teaching, but I would have tried to find something that presented new challenges more frequently. And so that could be any type of business, entrepreneurship, maybe even sports, as a coach or as an athletic administrator or leader in an athletic department. And when I look out on the future, and I love what I do now, but I'm always aware that the horizon is out beyond me if I'm fortunate to live a long time. And so as I look ahead, I find my clients' business and the challenges that they face as people who have startups or who have family business or who are even in corporate America to be fascinating. And my job oftentimes is from a legal perspective to help guide them through that. But I could see, if I'm fortunate to have a career after law, being a leader in business or a leader in the business of sports, and finding that just as fulfilling as I find being a jury trial lawyer now.
Mhm. So when you let's just kind of sidestep here, because
Sure.
if as you look at today's excuse me athletic environment, especially high school, well, college primarily, but some in high school, with this new with the NIL money
Yes, sir.
that's out there, and how it affects colleges and what's going on from a legal perspective, as you look at it from your scope. Do you see this as beneficial, positive, or do you see that as a negative, or how do you what's your perception of things today?
I see it as overwhelmingly positive.
Okay,
As
agree.
a student athlete who had a family who could like help me eat during the summertime, right? Yeah, right. And who could help me travel back and forth if I needed to get somewhere, both in high school and in college, and even in law school when that came. I would always marvel at how some of my teammates really were getting by, even though they were playing on TV in college. And this is in the old days, but I think that the ability of athletes in a life where your career is not guaranteed, making it to the pros was never guaranteed, but you can get injured anytime, getting out of bed one morning, and it can all go away in terms of your athletic opportunities. So I think it's overwhelmingly positive that student athletes can make money, that they can get engaged in business, that they can learn the skills that come with having money, whether it's a little bit of money or a lot in some cases. And so I have nothing negative to say about the process. And I think that the universities, the administrators, the brands, the companies that are engaging in the business have an opportunity through negotiation, sometimes through litigation, to put guardrails around the evolving system. But to me, the evolution itself is good, and it's providing opportunities for professionals as well. I think the schools have opportunity, the companies have opportunities, the attorneys engaged by either side have opportunities. The judicial system is involved in these cases, and really it's a reflection to me of how sports impacts life globally, and we can't ignore that. And it has obviously done that always, but the athletes themselves couldn't participate in it. And so now the playing field, the negotiation table is a little more level.
Right. Well, your point is, excuse me, well taken, and I agree with it 100%. Especially coming from the time frame where we got $15 for a laundry check.
Stipend.
Yeah, yeah, was what we got at that particular time. But if the money's out there, there's got to be some benefit, somebody benefiting from all of this. And
Right.
and I think your point as far as a governing, being able to put some guardrails around it would certainly help benefit. But I don't think the athletes should be penalized at all. For the amount of money. I think it's hard for fans, excuse me, from the standpoint of loyalty, whether a kid's going to jump school and go to another school, and it's kind of hard to understand and so forth. But that speaks back to the guardrails, and that may be something that from your career standpoint that you might be able to get some guidance going on down there. You have to think University of Miami is probably what anybody playing in sports down there in any particular environments. And that NIL money is really out there down in University of Miami.
I agree.
The question here says, do you think that the money distracts the players' focus?
Not as much as hunger did back in the day.
Good response. Yeah.
So it might, but I, as an observer of sports, especially when folks are playing at the highest level, they're playing at the highest level, and the NBA draft just passed. So the kids who were drafted high in the NBA draft, I think all of them have been making some money for a long time.
Oh, yes.
And you still saw that competitiveness between DeBansa and Peterson to go first.
Right.
So if you have the hunger to be great, making money is awesome, but you're still hungry.
Yeah. I personally don't think that the money distracts them, I think that there's really more motivation. And to your point, there's only a certain amount of players that are actually going to make it to the next level and be able to make a lot of making more money in college than they do going into pro. So very, very, very interesting. But is there any parting comments you'd like to make to our audience today? This has been a great interview, and love to continue conversation. But as we know, time's kind of closing in on us. So I want to give you an opportunity to just kind of let people hear any other comments you might have.
Thank you so much. I'll just close where I started with gratitude to you for having me on your show. I hope that you'll join me on Always an Athlete. You are the personification of the message of that show. And for anyone who's tuning in or who will see this after the fact, I appreciate you for listening. And what I would tell you is stay in the game and always remain an athlete even after your career ends, because the fulfillment, in my experience, is equal. When you are serving, when you are on a team, when you're contributing, and when you take the success and the failure with grace.
Jonathan, great message. And it's been a pleasure for me to have you on our show and to hear your message and to all the great things that you're doing, your positive outlook and attitude towards things. So thank you for being a part of our show. And certainly I'd love to be on one of your podcasts. So let's look forward to moving forward.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yes. There we go.
This has been Catch as Catch Can. The game isn't over. Your success story is just getting started. Head to tinsleyspeaks.com for exclusive content, resources, and opportunities. Catch as Catch Can with George Tinsley Sr., a production of Live Stream Editors.